Are you ready to set your authentic self free? Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast with me, Morgan Barkus. This podcast is full of my personal stories, advice, and strategies, as well as book recommendations to help you ditch comparison and society's standards for us women so you can finally reveal who you truly are. Are you ready to live out loud? Let's get this party started. I'm sure you've heard the saying, no is a complete sentence. I agree, and there's some nuance. Let's talk about boundaries. I would say one of the best experts on this topic that I've ever come across is Melissa Urban. She is the gal who started the Whole 30, if you're familiar with that. She has rewritten that book and is just a really open-minded, progressive, awesome person. I follow her on Instagram and I just enjoy her content. She's been authentic always and even more so now. She's admitted that her first Whole 30 was a bit rigid and that people's lives are more complicated than what she had originally expected in the Whole 30 protocol, if you will. And she also started exploring boundaries. And I really think it's awesome that not only does she talk about it, she wrote a book about it. So, again, if you're interested, Melissa Urban wrote a book called The Book of Boundaries. If you want to find out more about boundary setting, listen to her interview on the podcast called You Can Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle's sister and Abby Wambach. That, in my opinion, is one of the best interviews she ever did. She's super clear about what boundaries are and how to set them and she even has like different tiers when people are not, you set a boundary, a person doesn't respect your boundary, and then you have to take your boundary to the next tier. And what I find amazing about it is that the boundaries are not about the other people. You're not micromanaging anyone. You're not telling someone what they can and cannot do. Boundaries are about you, what you are okay with. And going back to what I started this episode out with, yes, no is a complete sentence. There are times when I have witnessed people, let's say they get an invite and they don't want to go. And then they come up with some elaborate excuse. Thank you for the invite. I can't go because I got this and that and the other thing, and then this other thing. When really all you can say is, no, thank you. That's it. That is a complete explanation. And to be honest, when you get too elaborate in the explanation, it comes across as fake. You're better off just saying, no, thank you. I don't want to. And you don't even have to say that part. I mean, truly, there is no need for an explanation. I think about the comedian Will Arnett. He shared a story on his podcast, Smartless, with his buddy Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes. And he said his ex-wife, Amy Poehler, they're both celebrities in Hollywood and of course get stopped by folks, and the folks want pictures or they want to chat. And Amy Poehler is really great at someone stopping her and saying, "Can I get a picture? Hey, can you sign this?" And she says, "No, thank you." And it's just that. And the person stops in their tracks and thinks, "Wait, what? Well, wait a second. I didn't she and they confuse and sort of catch the person off guard, if you will. And it's a complete sentence. There's no explanation needed. She doesn't have to say, "You know what? Not right now. I'm with my kids. I'm just trying to drop them off from school and I'm running late to my next appointment." Nobody needs all of that. She just simply says, "No, thank you." and that's it. And I would invite you to think about the times where someone invites you out, or you decide. I can think of an instance for me where she's back in my 20s. I could get 2 hours of sleep and still go to work the next day. Nowadays, in my 40s, no. My alarm goes off at 4:15 because I want to get up. I want to make the coffee. I want to journal. I'm going to shower. Then I'm going to go do a workout, and I'm going to get all of that done before 7:30. And I am now, at my desk ready to work at 7:30 in the morning, because where I work, they are on Eastern Standard Time, so they're already at work by 7:30 my time. And so for me, I'm on a plan, and there are times where I get invited to do something, or in the moment I say yes, I get excited, I get caught up and I say, "Yeah, let's do that." And then I get home and I think, "You know what? I don't want to do that." And I just text the person and say, "I would have loved to hang out with you. And now that I'm home, I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I'll see you next time." And it's just authentic, it's honest, and it's your boundary. You don't have to come up with some kind of elaborate excuse and make something up or over explain. You just say what it is. Now, in the case of Melissa Urban and some of the examples she gives on the podcast with Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach and Sister, You Can Do Hard Things, or We Can Do Hard Things? We Can Do Hard Things. Yeah, great podcast. One of my favorites. She Melissa talks about setting boundaries, and she is particularly talking about the holidays, because the holidays can be really difficult for some people. And she gives an example of Uncle whoever is coming to the house and always smokes in the house. And you don't like it. So you hee haw about, should I just not invite Uncle so and so? And then I don't have to deal with the fact that he's going to smoke in the house. She also gives an example of Auntie whoever who drinks way too much at the holiday and causes a scene, and it always becomes something every single year. And so it's not, you come at Auntie and say, "You know what? You can't drink at this event. You're not allowed to drink. It's not okay. And I won't be serving you alcohol." That is not a boundary. That is micromanaging someone else. That is controlling someone else. What you could do is set a boundary. Hey, this holiday, it is going to be no alcohol. This is an alcohol free party. You are more than welcome to join us. We would love to have you. I just wanted to let you know up front that we won't be serving alcohol this year. And if Auntie's upset and she doesn't want to come, that is her reaction. And you have no control over that. The only thing you have control over is your boundary. You set a boundary for yourself, your family, your household. How she reacts to that is all on her and none of your business. Now, the uncle that's smoking, hey, would love to have you. Very excited to see you. Just want to let you know, no smoking in the house. You are more than welcome to head out to the porch and have a smoke. Just wanted to let you know up front, there won't be any smoking in the house from now on. Again, your boundary. You get to set the boundary. You say what's okay for you. And then that person gets to decide how they're going to react to that. They get to decide how they want to proceed. And that, again, is none of your business. Now, if you are having some problems with setting boundaries, you are having a hard time letting no thank you be a complete sentence, look into Melissa Urban and her book called The Book of Boundaries. Follow her on the Instagram and definitely check out the interview she did on the podcast called We Can Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle, Abby Wambach, and Sister. Time to think about where you can set a boundary in your life. What would feel right for you in a friendship, in your family, even at work? Let's say you are dating and something doesn't feel right. Set the boundary for you and keep that boundary. This isn't about someone else's feelings. This isn't about pleasing other people or worrying about how they're going to react. You set a boundary, and how someone else reacts is completely up to them. It is none of your business. Have you seen the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? The American version. There is a Swedish version, the original, and there is a trilogy. It's really great, but you got to keep up because it's not in English, and you got to really stay tight with those um, subtitles. What I found fascinating in that movie, there is a serial killer. And at one point, the gentleman who is on to the serial killer breaks into the serial killer's house when he is not home. The serial killer comes home. The gentleman that had snuck into the house, the investigator, is literally out of the house. Okay. He had managed to get out of the house and was about to run down a cliff into the woods to safety when the serial killer, who at this time is playing like he doesn't know that he knows, and he says, "Hey, so and so, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I just," like he comes up with some stupid thing. And he's like, "Well, come on in, let's have a glass of wine." And instead of trusting his instinct and setting a boundary, which is, I don't feel safe right now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And I really don't care what this guy thinks. I don't think if he thinks I'm breaking into his house, because I did. I don't think, I don't care if he thinks I'm a serial killer, because I do. He went back into the house. Now, again, this is a fictional story. Still, he goes back into the house. The serial killer manages to detain him, and he ends up in his like serial killer scary basement room hanging by his neck. And he lives, spoiler alert. What I find fascinating is the serial killer, while this guy is strung up by his neck, possibly ready to lose his life, the serial killer says, "Isn't it interesting that you had an instinct, you had a feeling, you knew you should leave, you didn't feel safe, and yet you were so concerned about how I would feel about you creeping around my house that you acquiesced. And now here you are, about to die." And I thought, especially as a woman, where safety is always a concern, I thought, wow, never, ever, ever again will I worry about somebody else's feelings. I will always set a boundary for myself and make sure that I feel safe. And however that person chooses to respond is on them, not me. Okay, another quick story. Are you listening to My Favorite Murder with Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hartstark? You need to. Another of my favorite podcasts. I have only a few podcasts that I listen to religiously. We Can Do Hard Things, My Favorite Murder, Armchair Expert. That's kind of the rotation. On My Favorite Murder, they basically, the gals talk about true crime and how to stay safe. And they add comedy because they're friends and they are comedians. So they try to make it lighthearted. And there always is a life lesson. Their life lesson is one that really stuck with me was there was a story about a guy who, this was I think the 70s, and he picked up this girl. She was like 15 or 16. Unfortunately, she trusted him. She fell asleep. She thought, what is this old guy going to do to me besides get me where I need to go? And sure enough, he hit her over the head and he raped her and he chopped off her arms. It was all bad things. While the hosts were talking about this, they said, "Hey, we're not victim blaming here. And for those of you out there, what she could have done was not worry about this guy. When he got out to say he had to relieve himself on the side of the road, she could have jumped in the driver's seat and took off. And let's say he was an innocent old guy giving her a ride back to LA. Great. She can face a misdemeanor or say sorry or whatever, and she could possibly save her life. But because she was thinking, well, I don't know, this guy, she was giving him the benefit of the doubt, even though she felt totally creeped out. She didn't set that boundary. She didn't trust her instinct. And thank God she survived. And she is now, doing great things with her life. The lesson was, who cares what someone might think? You do what's right for you. The other person's response is up to them. And if they are a good human, they will understand that you set that boundary because that is what felt right for you in that moment, in that time in your life. Again, the boundaries aren't about limiting someone else. They are about you and what you need and what you want, and speaking clearly to that. And the other person gets to decide how they will react, and it's none of your business. Here's to boundaries. Thanks again for being here. Are you open to doing me a favor? Please hit that plus sign to follow this podcast, rate and review, and then share this podcast with at least one woman in your life that you care about.